So first of all, welcome to the March edition of the Cerini Connection, where we bring in experts in the fields that are troubling you the most and connect you with and provide insight and ideas for you. In today's remote world, it's becoming extremely more difficult to manage our business operations, including our most important resource, our staff. Everybody's been talking about the fact that they're having a tough time finding and managing and keeping staff. So we figured today that we would bring in an expert in that field, Donna Sirianni, co-founder and CEO of Moving Forward Strategies, so she can discuss with us leadership in a remote environment. So welcome, Donna, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ken.
So I want to get started right into this. So leadership kind of has evolved in the remote world. What do you see the primary function of today's leader? What is that?
Yeah, well, I feel no matter whether you're working in office or you're working remotely, that the job of that leader is to bring out the best in all the people that are helping them move that company forward. And when you bring out the best in people, they want to do good. They want to be productive. And that's the feeling and the emotion that I think leaders have to kind of drive out of people and bring people together to feel that, because it's the emotion that drives us to do well. And emotion is what drives us to be productive. So those leaders still have that responsibility to do that. It's just that you have to be a little bit more flexible now with the whole remote and in office and combination and hybrid, but it's still that you want to bring out the best in people.
So do you see things differently in the remote world from a leadership perspective than what you saw when people were really in person? I mean, has their role really significantly changed, or is it as simple as that, their goal is to bring out the best and it's always been that and it always will be?
Well, you want to bring out the best. It's just different ways of doing it now, right? So now you have to be, as a leader, if you've been doing something one way the whole time, you need to be able to be flexible and say, okay, well, now I have this situation and some people are at home. I don't see them face to face. How do I influence them? How do I lead them? What do I do? And you need to be flexible in that. And there's different ways that, they can do that, different ways that they can kind of set up their company, and different ways that teams can be set up. I think one of the most important things is to bring back, if it's not in everybody's face and people don't really, are not really connected to it, is the culture. So the mission, the vision, the values of the company, the values that they believe should be in between employees, that needs to be front and center again. And if it's not, it needs to be looked at again, because that's what's going to help connect those people that are remote to the company. What is the mission? What's the values here? Why am I with this company? What's their purpose? What am I doing? So that purpose needs to be connected with them again.
I see. I find that when you're in person, you can do things to bring people together. You can do things to build camaraderie between people. I think when we're kind of more remote here, I find that that's been more lacking, and that's been a little harder to do.
Right.
What can an effective leader do to kind of pull people in and make them feel like they truly are part of a company?
Well, I was actually listening to an interview, and they were talking about the CEO and how they take a certain time each week, maybe it's an hour, where they connect, online, Zoom, or however they're going to do it, face to face with 5-10 minutes per employee. So maybe it takes them a month to go through and connect with all the employees. So even from that level, I think to take the time and that 5-10 minutes to connect to all the different employees one-on-one, even though they're remote, I think makes an impact and makes a difference, where the employee feels, oh, you know what, the CEO, the founder of this company actually cares to know who I am. And they're taking 5-10 minutes to set up a meeting with me and get to know me, get to know who I am, maybe personally a little bit, and what I do and how I contribute to the company. And so I think even more now, that personal connection from the company and even from the C-suite or the upper level to the employees are really, really important.
One of the things that I've seen from a dynamic perspective, and I don't know whether you've seen the same thing, but from a dynamic perspective, it used to be employees would connect with a company because of, as we were talking about, firm culture or company culture and everything else. And I don't find that employees are necessarily connecting with a company the same way they did in the past. And I almost feel it's like the leadership or the team that they're connecting with in the remote world, more so than the company itself, because the team is who they work with on a regular basis. The leader is who they take direction and everything
Right.
from. Do you see the same thing? And is that a trend we're going to continue to see? And what do we need to think about from that perspective?
Well, the team needs to make sure that has to be tightened up, right? So you have the managers working with the team, they're on certain projects, that needs to be tight. But like you said, there could be a disconnect from the company itself. And I think that, you know, if anything, people have learned through this COVID experience what matters really most to them, and they want to see that reflected in their work. They want to see that reflected in where they work, the company they work. So besides coming out of that, I guess, that bubble of the team, yeah, there needs to be more done to have them connected to the company, whether it's something that maybe they're doing philanthropic, or they're volunteering, or they know the mission of this company and what they're doing, and the communication needs to be there. So maybe even more communication from the top down as to why we're building this company and what we're doing, and connecting people to purpose. People have to be connected to purpose. The gig is out, you know, they know what's most important to them now. We've all been through it, right? We've all of us on this webinar or Facebook, we all have stories that we can talk about going through COVID and the isolation and the remote and all of that. We all have those stories, and we know now what's important in life. And that has to be brought into work, and people want that now. People know, hey, you know what? This, you know, so-and-so maybe passed away, or so I had this situation, and this is what's really important, and people are important. And that's another thing I think is really important, is to focus on connection. And I love the name of your webinar. It's all about connections, right? Cerini Connection. That's what it is. It's connecting. So connection equals retention. Connection creates happiness. Connection creates productivity. So how do you connect people? And I think connection needs to be, whether it's communication from the company to the employees as to why we're doing what we're doing and what good we're doing in the world and how we're improving people's lives, or, you know, the connection needs to be between the employees. That's important. You know, they need to, especially when you're remote, you need to have that connection. If you're working somewhere and you're working with your buddy, you're working with a friend of yours, and you're happy and you have this project in front of you, you just naturally, studies show, you want to do better, you want to be productive. And that connection to people, I think, is the biggest issue and the biggest challenge in all of the changes that we've seen through what we've gone through. So
how do you foster that connection? How do you create those connections? Is it the company who's responsible? Is it HR who's responsible? Is it the leader who's responsible? I mean, who is, you know,
I think it needs to be on everybody's
for this
list.
connection, and how do we incorporate that into our leadership style?
Yeah, so I think that needs to be on everybody's list, no matter what position you're in, that you're responsible for some of that connection. And depending on where you are in the company, tells you what you kind of could do, right? So, I mean, if you're a manager and you have different things that your employees have to do, one thing you can do is create things that are more collaborative, so that when they're remote, they have to go on Zoom, they have to see each other, they have to talk to each other. So creating situations that are more collaborative, I think is a really good idea, instead of people constantly being solo. And then, you know, if you're remote, even if you have people come in, let's say face-to-face once a month, and that time when they come in, it's something that's team building, something that connects each other, something that's authentic like that. So whether it's remote and you do things collaborative, or you bring people in, so when they do come into the office once a month, or however you want to do it, it's something about connecting. It's about team building, about, okay, we're all in this together, even though we're remote. And what's popping up into my mind now, I look at the whole situation we were in with COVID, it's like the whole world has gone through this situation. So even though there's somebody in Italy or somebody in Africa, like, we've all been through it, and we've connected through technology where you can have that conversation. I know before we were talking about family in Italy, and it's like, they were going through what I was going through, and the technology is what connected us. So I think embracing technology, it's here, it is what it is, but there are good things about technology that can bring together people. So leaders need to be able to communicate across all platforms today. They need to know how their people want to communicate. They need to create some kind of technology where people are on the similar platform. People need to know that they can reach out at any time. So when you're working remote, you don't want the person to feel completely isolated. So it's up to that team manager to let them know, hey, you can reach out to me at any time. Consistency is really important. So saying, okay, we're going to have daily check-ins, or we're going to have weekly check-ins, and this is what we're going to do. Or even if you're on a Zoom call and you're working remotely, say the person's name. Ken, so good to see you, Ken. It's great to be here. And using that person's name and validating them. These little types of things are important that could bring us together.
So it's really, really then important for a leader to exhibit certain skill sets and traits and stuff like that. What are the primary skill sets and traits, and what do companies need to do to help kind of foster and promote those?
Yeah, so communication is top, right? Because communication is what connects us. And so they have to be able to communicate across all different platforms and be present, even if it's just technology driven for whatever reason, right? They have to be flexible, because there's a lot of uncertainty with this. People working at home, and well, what's going on at home and how is that working, different situations that people have in their lives and things that are going on in the background. They have to be flexible. Maybe something they think a project's going to turn out a certain way with this remote team and it doesn't. They have to say, okay, let's just change the strategy. We know what we want the outcome to be, but as a leader, you have to be able to change your strategy. As we all know, right? I mean, when this all started, people were used to doing business one way, and we all of a sudden had to hop on technology and learn Zoom. And so you have to continue to be flexible. And consistency, I think, is really important. You can't just onboard somebody and tell them about your company and disappear. You need to have some consistency, because I think if people are working remote and they don't have any of that, it's kind of like, you want to set certain boundaries and have that consistency, so they know no matter what's going on, this meetings is gonna happen, or this has to happen by this date, or I'm going to talk to this person at this time. I think trust is really important. Leaders need to know that there has to be now some kind of trust, because reality is you're not going to see them every second, right?
Yeah, but that also has to be a two-way street.
Absolutely, right? So the leaders have to trust the employees that they're going to do what they're going to do, and the employees have to trust that the leaders are going to create opportunity for them to grow, connect, still feel purposeful, and have a really great employee experience. And I think empathy, a lot, I think, with as far as leadership, people talk about empathy, and we need to care. Mm-hmm. We need to care. I mean, if somebody cares about you, you're more likely to care back about what they're doing and care about their project, their business, if they care about you. So I think, if anything, this has humanized a lot. We talk about the pictures of people with coffee and the babies coming through and the dog is barking. It's like we kind of learned, we all knew that we had lives, but we got to see it on camera now. Like, wow, this is life. And so I think some good comes out of that. And I think leaders need to be flexible and kind of strategizing how they're going to bring people together now based on the reality that we have.
It's also been pretty cool, because you could be talking to someone for 2 years now under the COVID regime, and then finally you show up someplace and they're there and you meet them for the first time, and it's like, hey, nice to see you in person. And it's like, everybody's like, wait, this is the first time we're meeting?
Right. There's like a three-dimensional person, right? 3D. It's a hologram. I know it's different. It's different, but I really feel that it's here. It's going to stay. I mean, companies are spending less on travel because they have opportunity for collaboration on Zoom. And I think that it's going to stay. And so because it's going to stay, we have to find the benefits and bring that to the forefront. And we have to find ways to be flexible and understand that it's different now. It's different. So leaders can't be one way only. They have to be open-minded. They have to see what works. They have to be flexible in their strategy, like I said.
Yeah, I find that at least, in talking to employees, whether it be our employees or employees of some of our clients and stuff, I find that some of the stuff that the employees are truly craving right now is they're craving education. They want to learn, they want to expand, they want to grow.
Yes.
So again, I think that's also something, tool that a leader has to be able to do. And they want feedback. They want to know how their performance is. And I find that if people don't feel like you mentioned empathy before, but if they don't feel like the leadership is, that there's empathy there, if they don't feel like they're getting the feedback that they want, they don't feel like they're getting the education and the growth strategies, that's when they start to look at a leader and say they're not effective.
Right. And so you have to provide upfront that growth opportunity for them, and to say, hey, you're here with us, and here's the path, here's the growth path. These are the things that you can do. And and again, the connection with the leaders and the employees, that has to be there. That consistency, the check-in, if you have them do something, like, think of us, right? So if we're in our home office or whatnot, you're by yourself, you need to have that feedback from your leader. Hey, this was a great job, or hey, you did great on this, and how about trying this next time? And why don't you collaborate with Susan? And, so that feedback has to be there so that they know, all right, I'm on the right track. And I think that it's got to be more formal, because maybe when you're in an office, you can talk to someone by the water cooler, you pass them by in the hallway, hey, great job on this, but you're not going to always get that in a remote situation. So you have to be more mindful of the feedback, and when you give the feedback and how you give the feedback, and make sure it's there.
One of the things that I find when you're together in an office, people are together in an office, there's a lot of impromptu learning and impromptu discussion that takes place.
Right.
Where, like, maybe I'll be talking to one person and 2 or 3 other staff members will be overhearing it, and they're learning through this process.
Yeah.
One of the challenges I find that in a remote world, and you said it before, it's almost like you have to force or plan or create opportunities for that stuff to occur, as opposed to things being more impromptu.
Right.
What does a leader need to do, or what can people do to kind of allow that to happen maybe more naturally, or create environments for some of that stuff to happen? Because I think some of the most effective learning happens when it's non-intentional.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, some basic things that you can do, let's say before you have a meeting, put everybody together in the room and let them talk. Say, 15 minutes before the meeting, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to let people talk and just connect. Being able to give people time to brainstorm and say, okay, well, this meeting is not going to be ABC. We're going to just brainstorm right now. And we want to throw out some ideas, and creating an environment, whether it's online or in office, where people feel comfortable doing that. And they don't feel like, oh, my idea is going to be stupid, or I don't want to say. You have to create this environment that they feel safe, and it's okay for them to express ideas and thoughts. And so just coming out and saying, hey, we're just going to, next 15 minutes, just brainstorm. I just want you to throw ideas out. And no one's right, no one's wrong. Let's just think about, maybe some challenges we have, and maybe some ideas that you have, or what's going on, without any structure. So to try to allow time, and I know it's kind of ironic because it has to be structured because you're doing a meeting, but to allow some time within that meeting that's super flexible, that's completely open, let's just throw it out there. So that's one way to create that, and the people that are, like I said before, if they are working remote, but you can bring them in, let's say once a month, just to create more brainstorming sections where people are free with their thoughts and their ideas. They don't feel like they're going to be shut down, or, and that's where leadership needs to create that safe space for them. So, everybody's idea is valued, and if they're great ideas, implement them, but they need time to talk and brainstorm and feel free. Because if you just say, all right, brainstorm, and no one feels comfortable, you're going to have 10 people on Zoom just sitting there like this and doing nothing. They need to feel that connection. So that's I think one way that we could do that.
I think part of the problem also, though, is you put together a group of people and you bring them into a room, unless you've already fostered a relationship, you're not going to get the younger or the newer staff members necessarily talking. We see that happen all the time, where you get a room together and the people who talk are the ones who are going to talk. And the people who don't talk are the ones who are not going to talk. And I guess the question is, how do you get everybody talking? How do you get everybody involved in the conversation so everybody feels engaged?
So that's where the leadership has to ask questions of those people and encourage them. What are your thoughts? What do you think? Maybe they don't just come out and say it, But if they're asking, I want to know your opinion. You know, what do you really see? Sometimes people see things from different perspectives. It could be an intern, it could be someone that, you know, just joined the company and they're just starting out, but they have a perspective on how things can be better. So asking them what they think, I think that's what they need to feel. They need to feel that, oh, my opinion will count if I say something.
My
And
voice is
I need
important.
someone, yeah, like I'm valued. They want to feel valued. And when people feel valued, then they're more apt to talk and be more open. But it's up to the leader to draw that out. You know, it's up to you to say to that person, hey, I'm so glad you're with us. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this. You know, what do you think? And to create that for them. So yeah, the people that aren't talking, I feel it's the leader that needs to step up and encourage them by how they interact with them and ask them questions. And through asking them questions and their thoughts, you're telling them, hey, I'm valued. And then if you implement something that you think makes sense, wow, I'm really valued. My opinion does matter. And then they will speak up more frequently.
What's your thought on including newer, younger staff members or employees in maybe some more upper level meetings so that they start to learn, they start to understand, they get a better understanding of what's happening within an organization and everything else?
Absolutely. I think that's really important. I was actually just watching something and they were talking about how somebody was brought into an upper level meeting, and that at this upper level meeting, the leader kind of went off and got upset about something, was talking to a client, and it just, the emotions heightened, and that person, the person that just joined the company, was watching all of this. And at the end of the meeting, the leader was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that you saw that. Like, this is probably something you shouldn't have seen. And the person was like, no, I'm glad I saw that, because that made me realize, like, okay, you also have an issue with this client. I'm not the only one going crazy. And, you know, even you were trying to find ways to deal with this client. So thank you, because the transparency actually helped me. And that those people were able to, now that person feels more connected, like, oh, it's not just me. It's not just me alone going through this or thinking this. And they saw somebody else in the upper level having a challenge dealing with this. And so they were so grateful to be able to sit in that meeting.
Okay, so let's go back to virtual staff a little bit. Okay. So you talked about before that you need to try to get the virtual staff maybe a little more engaged, plan things. What are some ideas that a leadership can put in place to kind of create that engaged remote culture? I mean, I know that's not the easiest thing in the world, right? But what can we do as an organization, or what can we do as a leader to kind of create that more engaged environment for our staff who are working remotely, or who may not even be, you may never see them in person because maybe they're working remotely. I mean, we have staff that live in Montana.
Right, right. So, you know, one of the things that people talk about are like creating something like a coffee roulette. So every week somebody gets paired with somebody else and they have a 30-minute coffee chat with each other that has to do with business or not do with business, you know, not do with the company, but just giving them an opportunity to get to know each other through something like that. Creating online experiences. There's different things and experiences people can have that are now online and kind of collaborate together, even though they're far away. And I think that besides collaborating on work, collaborating in some kind of fun, because you're not going to be able to kid around with them in the halls, is important to incorporate into what you do now. So looking at that and seeing what can I bring in to connect people and have them engage with each other, and then also see how I can engage them with the company through different things that you could do online is important.
Okay, so again, I think one of the big things that happens when people are around is, as you said, they meet in the hallway, or they're sitting there, and invariably they're talking and they're laughing, and again, when you're sitting in your own room, that interaction isn't happening. And again, I think that interaction kind of helps kind of bond people to the organization that they're working for. Right. You know, and it's creating those kind of bonding moments to build community. Right. I think that becomes the biggest challenge that we have.
Yeah. So. And I think that especially with people coming in today that they're coming out of college, they feel, believe it or not, really connected through social media, whether it's on TikTok or Snapchat or Twitter or, whatever it is that they're on. They build this community. They have the group chats, where they send in pictures or they're talking. And so there's a lot of social media community-based experiences that they're already coming into the company having had with their friends and people in college. So continuing that community through technology, I think, is really something that companies should be very aware of, that it's a good thing and it's something that they're used to and that they're doing anyway. And that I don't know about you, but like on my phone, I have a group that's like, this is my friend group and this is like my family group. And when things happen, I could just throw something out and I know 25 people are getting it. And then someone comments back, or someone has a situation and they took some pictures of something fun and they send it to that group. They're used to that. That's their life. I have a 23-year-old, 17-year-old, 14-year-old. That's what they do. So that component is important in the business. And that, even though maybe we didn't have that when we were younger, they have that. That's how they connect now. So not to dismiss that and say, oh, well, that's kid stuff, but to bring that social media and the technology platforms and the group chats and all of that into the company, I think that they would feel that it would just flow from what they're used to. And they feel connection through that, even though I would be like, well, you're chatting to them on the phone or you're texting them. Why don't you call them or Zoom them or, go on a Zoom or whatever? They feel really connected. That's just how they are. We might not feel that, but we have to provide opportunity for that and incorporate that.
So now we've talked about all these things, but how do you get that balance? Okay, so you have to get work done because ultimately this still is a job or a workplace or whatever.
Right.
And you're trying to balance that with meetings. And when do we have too many meetings? When do we have too much of this stuff that we're trying to put in place? When does it stop being natural? When does it start feeling forced?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's a little bit different is that leaders have to focus on outcome instead of daily activities, because you're not going to be with that person every 5 minutes. You're not going to be able to walk into their office every 15 minutes. So that's where that trust comes in, where it's more focused on, okay, this is what I need you to do. And you have to be, I think, even more clear on outcomes. You have to be more clear on when things are due, when things have to be submitted, so that there is some kind of a structure there. So it's like, this is what we need to do. Take all the time you need within this week to make sure it's done in your way. But at the end of the week, this is what we need to have done. And if there are issues throughout that person needs to feel that they could reach out to management, they could reach out to people during that week or during that time. But it's not so much, it's more outcome and results oriented than activity oriented. And those clear daily expectations, maybe that you have, check-ins that you have, are important. So this stuff has to be scheduled. It's kind of like creating a structure, and then within that structure, giving them some more freedom. But the structure is a structure. At the end of the day, things have to get done, right? So maybe again, it's collaborating. Maybe it's, here's the project. This is what has to get done. These are the 10 people that need to be involved. At the end of each day, just let me know where you're at. I'm not going to follow you minute by minute when you're home working, but at the end of the day, just let me know what was accomplished. So you have to have that communication, and you still have to have timelines, I think, are really, really important, and check-ins are important. And the fact that the people can reach out to leadership if they don't understand something or something's not very clear, they have to feel comfortable where the leadership is like, no, reach out anytime. And they need to have that communication.
Yeah, I think something you said there, the expectations and establishing expectations. I think that's probably one of the more important components here.
Yeah.
Is making sure that people understand. I mean, what I tell my staff all the time is, when someone hands you a project, there's certain questions you should be asking. When do you need it by?
Right.
How long should it take me? And what sort of check-in or communication are you looking for?
Right. Even more so, you have to be, I mean, I go into offices sometimes and the clarity is not there when you're in office of what has to get done. So you have to even be more specific of what your expectations are when you're remote, and have more clarity. And I think a very basic thing, I mean, one of the things that I teach is reflective listening. And especially in this case, if you're on a Zoom, like let's be totally practical, you're on a Zoom, this is what you have to get done. You should ask, okay, kind of reflect back to me what you think, what you think the outcome of this is, what has to get done. Let them verbally say it back, because that gives you a time for confirmation to make sure everything was understood correctly before they go, and you kind of let them go and do their thing. So I think up front, you have to put a lot more emphasis on what has to get done, why it has to get done, and let the employee reflect back to you what the expectations are, instead of you just telling them these are the expectations. Let them reflect back to you. Let them have an opportunity to ask questions and feel comfortable to ask questions. But that clarity, that communication is super, super important when you're talking about remote, because again, you're not there every 5 minutes. So you need to have that.
Again, I think what's important is whenever you're giving somebody something new that they haven't worked on before, there's going to be a certain level of trepidation. They're going to feel a little confused and unsure. Giving them the ability to, or walking through an example with them, do some role playing with them, so that from a role playing perspective, they feel a little more comfortable in the process, so that they really understand what it is they're supposed to be doing. Take the time to share screens with them, and work through some stuff with shared screens and other tools that are out there, because there's plenty of them.
Right. Having some kind of platform where they can collaboratively work, like you said, having shared screens or something that they could, a way that they're able to share their files and collaboratively work on that, and make edits to things and put ideas in and discuss. So some kind of platform, technology platform is really important. So when they're off and they're doing their thing, they all know, okay, this is the hub I go to, that we work together as a team. And everybody has their input. They know how to use that technology. And it's important to make sure that the people that are remote have everything that they need to do what they have to do, to make sure the computer's right, to make sure the sound, the video, that they have whatever has to be put onto their computer, whatever programs that they need, that's there, it's up and working. Maybe having a tech person at your company that's available, where people who are remote have these technical issues, that they can help them and jump right on, because we all know once we have something technical that happens and there's a challenge, it's like, oh, wait, and it takes up so much of your time. So to have somebody there that could kind of nip that in the bud, that's good too.
What platforms do you, or have you been recommending, or what platforms are you seeing that your clients are using that you think are really strong tools that companies should be looking at?
There's there's HubSpot, there's Google Teams. That's something I think that they have to research as far as their community and what they need, how many people they have, small group, large group. But that's definitely something to research for sure, to see how it would fit with your company.
From a what do you call it, a employee perspective, obviously, you want to set tone at the beginning when a new employee starts. I think one of the hardest things we've seen out there is like onboarding new employees and kind of, creating that or incorporating them into a culture. That's hard enough to do, especially if they're coming from another culture. I mean, a new employee out of school is a little different. You can kind of indoctrinate them into your culture to begin with, but you have now other people that you're bringing in. How do you, in a remote world, how do you help to indoctrinate them into your culture? Or if they're going to be a manager and you're going to be looking for them to be pushing your culture down to the rest of the staff, how do you get that culture across to them? And how do you get them to a point where they really understand and are working within the context of the culture you've created?
I think discussion with teams, with actual people. So not necessarily directed from one person, but taking somebody and bringing them in and introducing them from the beginning. Let's say they're from another culture or from somewhere else, to the people that work here. Let them get to know each other and exchange ideas on culture and where their background is, what their background is, how do they usually work, where they're coming from, what do we do. So the most important thing always is to have communication and have this open communication. Let them get to know each other. Let them get to know each other a little bit personally, a little bit as far as, work experience and how they usually do things, and collaborate that way. But I think just opening up as people And just communicating that way and introducing them that way, I think is the first thing that needs to be done, so that there's again, that connection, they establish a connection human to human, even though we're on computers. And then, you create that environment that's more, okay, let's see what this is about. And, how can we incorporate some ideas that you have and where you're from into what we do? And maybe we can show you some things that we do and you can incorporate into how you lead, and having that communication. But it's always about that. It's always about just being real and honest and open and just talking to each other. It really comes down to that. And then whatever issues come up or questions come up or challenges come up, if you have that connection between people, people will talk, people will bring it up, people will provide possible solutions. But you have to create an environment that says, hey, we care about you. We know that this is a different world and we're remote and some people are in office, and we get that. But we care about you and we want you to be part of our team. And we're going to create these different, maybe online experiences, and we're going to have these coffee chats, or we're going to, make sure you feel comfortable reaching out to management if you don't understand something. We want to create that for you. And just being honest about what the situation is, I think is a great start. People want to feel valued, cared. When they feel valued, cared, happy, they're productive. They want to do everything for you, because you took the time to do that and talk to them as people.
What are some of the more interesting or cooler, you talked about the coffee chat and stuff like that, but what are some of the more interesting or cooler ideas that you've seen in play within companies that have, kind of brought their staff together on a remote basis to try to get them to kind of connect?
Yeah. So there's one called Live and Learn. So Live and Learn is, everybody gets a turn maybe before each meeting or whatever, and you present something that has nothing to do with business, something that's totally, and how to bake, I bake apple pies, let's say, and I'm a great pie baker, and this is how I do it, and demonstrate that, and just totally pull something out of somebody's life that they can share with the team. So it's almost like, remember show and tell, right? Yeah. When you were a little, show and tell, it's almost like the same thing. Live and learn, right?
I usually get in trouble for that though.
Yeah. Live and learn for adults. And, just to have that kind of human kind of experience of this is, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm about. People can share their cultures, right? Like before, you and I were talking about, oh, you're Italian and you have people that are in Italy. I do. And that connects us, right? Because now, oh, wow, we have a similar interest. So whether people talk about their cultures and they do something like that, where they introduce people that way to a little bit of part of their life, or they do a live and learn where they introduce, hey, gardening's coming up. I always plant a garden. Let me show you what I do. And they do a 15-minute kind of show and tell presentation on that. It's just a snippet of the person's life that you would probably talk about maybe over a water cooler, or you would see each other in the hallways and do. But again, you have to try to make it a little formal, obviously, because you have to sign online. But that's another thing that some people are doing. And then there's also movie nights. Let's say you all go on to Netflix and everybody's watching a certain movie where it's completely out of the office. And then, the next morning before work, hey, we're going to have a 20-minute chat on this movie, and people get involved that way. So, people go to happy hour after work. People have virtual happy hours. Everybody has a drink. Depending on what you want to do and how far you want to do, there's a lot of different ideas virtually to try to bring people together.
How important is it to bring people together as an entire organization versus bringing together people within individual teams or sub-teams or whatever? Is it important to do it all? Is it not as important on a organizational wide basis, especially if you've got a large organization? What's the right kind of formula here?
The immediate, people leave, we know that people leave companies because of leadership, not because of the company. So that leadership has to do with people. So the people you're most closely connected with and working with are going to have the most influence on you and how happy you are and productive you are. And, they have that opportunity and platform to help you become the best person, best employee that you can. So those people that are leading right from the start and leading those people, groups or one-to-one management, super important. However, the company is still, I always look at companies like somebody founded a company, somebody had a vision and they said, I'm going to create this company and I want to, create this product or this service. And there's things I want to do and there's charity work I want to do. And I want people to feel this. And I want my clients to experience that. And I want to solve problems. So the founder and, the CEO or the founder, the people that are there, that vision still needs to get to those people. You can't just cut it off because we're remote and that doesn't count anymore, because that's the driving force between all of it. And if you're a founder of a company, you're a leader of a company, all these people, you're on a ship and you're trying to go in a certain direction. All the people working for you, they're the ones driving the ship. They're so important. If they all say goodbye, you're not going anywhere by yourself, right? It takes a team. So you can't just excuse yourself, I feel like, as a leader or CEO because it's virtual and the manager has them. Yes, the manager and working with that team, that's their day-to-day, that's super important. But you still have to show the people that are working for you, this is why you love working here. This is what we do. Here's our vision. This is our mission. This is how we want to make the world better. And they need to still have that big overall vibe that they put out and communication that they put out to the rest of the company. It's still important because people are connected to that. And there is a company, and they're led by people. So again, it just always comes down to people. You can have a person at the top that is just looking at numbers, doesn't care, and completely disconnected, or you can have a leader at the top that looks at the numbers and does all that, but it also really cares about the people driving the ship and helping them get to where they need to go to, because it's the people that are going to help you arrive at the numbers you need to get to. They don't just magically appear. You have all these people you hired. So they're really important. And, taking the time out as a leader to let them know that is going to make them more productive and help you even more because you care. And again, in today's world, people just are like, hey, I just went through a bunch of stuff the last couple of years and I know what's important in life. And if you can't still connect me somehow, that's what's important. You don't treat me like somebody that's a valued human being, I'm not interested in working here. I'll go somewhere else because I know it's important now. So that connection needs to be there. I mean, how great would it be to go into an office or in a company and the founder of that company cares about you. Oh, I'm just an intern. I just came in. But no, you're not just an intern. You're not someone who just came in. You were picked to be part of this because we feel you can add value. And that leader, to let that person know, hey, just because I have a title doesn't mean I can't talk to you for 5 minutes and say thank you for everything you're doing for the company and for your department, and you're making a difference. That makes a big deal to them. That makes a difference to them. It may seem like, oh, it's a 5 minutes, it's annoying or whatever to that leader, but it makes a huge difference to the people that are doing the work.
It's funny because when I talk to a brand new hire, regardless of what level, I always tell them that they're just as important to the firm as I am, because whatever they do, I'm relying on them just as if, people are relying on me. So everybody's equally important.
Yes. And I'll tell you what I've found is, I do something with streamlining, right? Where we ask everybody in the company, what are the challenges and problems that you see every day and how can they be fixed? And it could be something simple as, the refrigerator is not empty and it smells. And when I go in there, it makes me uncomfortable. Maybe we should have a clean out once a week, or whatever it is, wherever they are, because from their perspective, they're sitting at their desk or they're doing their thing. They know what the issues are. And so it's important for leaders to go to everybody in the company and ask them, well, what do you see that can be better? And what are some of your ideas? And it's a great thing because they feel like, oh, wow, they actually care to have on making this company better and making everything more streamlined. And they're asking me for my solutions because a lot of people have solutions and they may think, well, they just don't care. If they would just do this, it would be so much easier. Or why am I doing something 5 times when if we did this, it could be more streamlined or whatever the case may be. So yeah, asking people, no matter where they are and what position that they're in, what the challenges are, what they see, and that their ideas are just important. They can come up with ideas that can change everything. And you can say, oh my God, this new person that I just hired gave me this great idea that I didn't see because I wasn't sitting in their chair with their perspective. right? So it's about,
yeah, so we're basically out of time, but I want to ask you a quick question before we let everybody go. I mean, one of the things that then, if leaders are so important, then that's going to put a lot more emphasis on companies to invest in leadership training.
right.
So what should companies be doing from a leadership training perspective to ensure that the people that they're putting in place to run aspects of their organization are going to be effective?
So very important is companies have to look at their culture. If you haven't looked at it and it's just some words on a wall, that's not good enough. How have I incorporated all of this into my company? Am I living it? Am I living these values? Are they not just words that we decided on, but how am I creating experiences around these values so that they can stay connected to them? Leadership training, communication, all of that growth, I think, especially right now, is really, really important, is reconnecting with that, because I think people have been doing things one way a long time and things have changed. So that kind of training is really important. And sometimes it's one-on-one. It's maybe sometimes just one-on-one with that leader and discussing those challenges and how they could improve and how they could get better and maybe be more transparent and connect more to their team.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Donna. We really appreciate it. This was amazing. As I said, we're out of time. So what we will do is when we send around a copy of this video to everybody so that they have it, we'll also send around your contact information. If anybody wants to reach Donna, they can. So thank you, Donna. This was great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on, and good luck, everybody.
So tune in on April 6th when our guests will be Josephine Petito and Dennis Ast of One Group to discuss cybersecurity and how you can protect yourself through cyber insurance and other things. Until then, stay safe, and we'll see you all again next month. Thanks, everybody. Take care.